Pastor Michael, it is so great to have you at Central, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know you better through this interview and letting the people of our church get to know you as well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm excited. I mean, we love being at Central. We may get into it a little bit, but I'm so thankful that my family and I, we were here a year before even coming on staff. We didn't come here for the job. We chose the church because that's where we wanted our kids to be. You know, we want our kids to come through the kids ministry and youth ministry, and so we love Central. So getting to be part of the staff is really a dream.
Yeah, what an incredible gift when that really wasn't your intention coming in, and now here we are.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so married to Rebecca. We've been married just over 10 years. We actually met at Chick-fil-A. So
yeah, where all romance starts.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, chicken sandwich and
a really pretty girl.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we've been married for 10 years, and then we have 2 kids. Audrey is 6 and Andy is 3.
And you moved from where?
So we spent 3 years before moving here. We were in Massachusetts for 3 years.
Okay.
Now, both of us are Midwesterners. I grew up in Missouri. She grew up in Kansas. So we are not from Massachusetts.
Okay.
But we spent 3 years there before coming to Springfield.
So I'm really intrigued, as I think a lot of people are, that you are Dr. Michael Scott. You don't seem old enough to be Dr. Michael Scott. I told Colin you are like the youth pastor Doogie Howser.
I was about to say Doogie Howser.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You're the Doogie Howsers of youth pastors. So tell me a little bit about just your training in school and leading up to this point.
Yeah. So I went to Central Bible College. That's where I got a bachelor's degree in youth ministry, and then went straight into ministry after that. And I spent 10 years, between a year in Nashville at a large church there as a middle school pastor, and then 9 years in Wichita, Kansas as a youth pastor. And then the last 2 years in Kansas, I was also executive pastor. So I kind of did double duty, youth pastoring and then overseeing the other pastors and directors of ministries in the church. And so 10 years of youth ministry. During that time, though, for whatever reason, I just felt like God wanted me to get a master's degree. There was no reason, there was no incentive, there was no pay raise. But I just thought, okay, like it was right before I had met Rebecca, and so I was single. I'm like, okay, I have time, like this is the best time to do it. So I started a master's degree, and during that time of the master's degree, I met my wife, dated her, and we got married right before I graduated with the master's. And so it just felt like, all right, I need to do that. Not thinking anything of it.
Yeah.
And then that's actually what opened up the doors after 10 years of youth ministry to go work at a college in Massachusetts, because they said, hey, you have a master's, you could be part of the administration, you can help teach. And then when I was at the college, it's always good when in administration of the college, you have higher degrees. It's always good having doctorates there. So they had told me, hey, if you're interested in getting a doctorate, like we would help you with that and we'll pay for half of it. And it's like, what a cool opportunity.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
But, you know, it had to be something I was passionate about. So I kind of looked around different doctor of ministry degrees, and I found one that was a doctor of ministry in next generation ministry. And I said, that's perfect, because I love youth ministry. I'd been doing youth ministry, and while I was at the college, I was also teaching youth ministry. So I thought, okay, if I can, you know, get a doctorate in this area, it'll help the college, but also it'll help me be a better youth ministry professor. It'll help me invest in other youth pastors, which became a passion of mine as well.
When you talk to youth pastors, what is something that you feel like school is not going to prepare you for this?
Something super practical is I see a lot of youth pastors just not well prepared in the systems and administration of youth ministry. They have the passion, they love preaching, and so usually that's not something that I have to work with them much on. But actually when I was in Kansas, after I was there for a while, they would let me know who a new youth pastor was in the state, and I would go out, have coffee or lunch with them, and just sit with them and talk with them, help them get acclimated, but then also just talk youth ministry. And I saw the passion and the preaching, but they were lacking in the systems and the follow through. And you know, you say you want to make disciples, how do you actually do that?
Sure.
And walking through those steps. So I would say that's something that I've seen a lot of youth pastors that they don't often get is, how do you run a youth ministry? What's the process of things? How do you plan a retreat? How do you train your leaders? The really practical side. And,
right.
Yeah.
It's more than just great ideas.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to follow through with those things.
Yep.
So Michael, looking backwards a little bit, we're going to work backwards in this interview. I want to talk about why youth? When did that happen for you to want to be in youth ministry?
Yeah. So I felt a call into ministry when I was about 14, almost 15 years old in a summer camp. And up to that point, I wanted to be a band director. That was really kind of the goal in my life. I loved music. I loved learning new instruments. I loved band. I was on the drum line, did percussion, loved all that stuff. And so I thought that was the path I was on. And I remember being at a youth camp one summer, and whatever the message was, whatever the altar call was, it was basically like, will you say yes to whatever God has for your life? And I remember, I can take you to the exact spot in this tabernacle in Excelsior Springs, Missouri, the Northern Missouri Youth Camp, the exact spot to the left side where I said, okay, God, whatever you want to do, like the answer is yes. Why would I not trust you? And at the time I thought, oh, I have to give up music. I love music. I have to give all that up. But I'm saying yes to God. This is exciting. And I mean, looking at the end of the story, God still used music in many ways in youth ministry. But yeah, so I felt called into ministry, and I didn't know what that meant. I don't come from a ministry family. No one in my family is a pastor. I mean, they love Jesus, but none of them are preachers or anything like that. And so I just looked at the people around me. I had what I consider the world's greatest youth pastor. His name's Michael Escamilla, still a close friend and mentor to this day. And I just said, okay, he's awesome. And he's doing ministry. He's a pastor. Let me just follow him around. And he was so cool in letting me, go on errands with him and just talking ministry and sitting in his office and talking through what he was thinking and the direction he wanted to take the ministry. And I said, okay, I think I want to do what he's doing because he made a huge impact in my life as a teenager. And I saw what the youth ministry did for me and my friends. And so it was kind of a natural move into, okay, I want to pursue ministry because I see the opportunities that can happen in a teenager's life, that as they're growing, as they're maturing, man, if we can get them to love Jesus as a teenager, if we can get them to cultivate lifelong friendships with other believers, I mean, we're setting them up on a path of loving Jesus for life. And so that's why I wanted to do youth ministry. For me, youth ministry was never a stepping stone. It was never a, let me do this for a few years, then I want to be a lead pastor. It was always, I want to invest in students. And even when I went to the college level, it was, I want to invest in students, but I also want to invest in those who will disciple students. And so youth ministry has always been the thing for me.
So take me to 14-year-old Michael and even younger than that. Where was all of that taking place? And just tell me about your childhood a little bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I grew up in Columbia, Missouri. So if anybody knows me, they know I'm a huge Missouri Tiger fan. Okay. Me and Pastor Liz have that in common.
Awesome.
We actually went to rival high schools, not at the same time, but so we'll take jabs at each other. But
you're friends now.
Yeah, we're unified with Mizzou.
Okay.
Yeah. And but yeah, so I grew up in Columbia, Missouri at a great church. Some people may know the name of Gary Dimbo. He was my pastor. He later became the president of Central Bible College when I was there, which was really cool that the pastor I grew up with became my college president. And just, so he was somebody that just invested in my life and somebody I could look up to and model my life after. An incredible preacher as well. So I got to grow up under incredible preaching. And then the youth pastor I mentioned, Michael Escamilla, just watching them, once I felt that call into ministry, I had incredible examples right in front of me. So I'd be silly to not follow them and pick their brain and all that. But yeah, so grew up in Columbia. I have 2 older brothers as well. So I was the youngest of 3 boys. And I remember my older brothers just getting so involved in the youth ministry. And I would watch this when I was in elementary school and just thinking like, man, I can't wait to do what they're doing. I can't wait to get involved like they're doing. That's back when there were a lot of drama productions in churches. So the youth group would do a production or there'd be a church production. And actually back then, when I was a kid, I loved theater. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a part of all that. And so I was in the church plays. I was in plays at school. And interesting part of that though, when I was in elementary school, I remember I had speech problems. I couldn't say R's, L's, or S's right, which that's cute when you're a little kid, right? But when you get older, like that's harder, especially when your name is Michael, there's the L, Raymond, there's the R, and Scott, there's the S. So couldn't even say my own name right.
You were plagued.
Yeah, exactly. But so 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, during school, they would pull me out and I would go to this very intense speech therapy for 3 years. And I just thought with my life, I want to be a band director. You have to talk in front of people a little bit, but it's not about your words, it's about the music. Yeah. And when God called me to ministry, I mean, I felt like Gideon, given all the reasons why he's choosing the wrong person. I remember saying, God, like, yeah, I've gone through speech therapy. I can talk okay now, but don't you remember that was me? And don't you remember I could get caught on my words? And if I say something wrong, then, all of that.
It just didn't feel like your natural gift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
God, there are people that talk way better than I can. Right. And I just remember saying, but God, it's your choice. If you want to use me, the answer is yes. I told you that.
Yeah.
And to fast forward, not only has God used me in ministry to preach, but also a cool thing in college, but then also when I was a youth pastor, I would be the PA announcer for athletic programs. So when I was in college, I was at CBC, the voice of the Spartans. I would announce basketball games. And or when I was a youth pastor, one of the ways I got into the local public high schools is I would be the PA announcer for their sports. So I would do football, baseball, softball, soccer, all their big sports. I was the guy announcing the PA stuff. And so what I thought was a huge weakness, God actually used as not only my job, but also a way to get into schools, to invest in the community, to share the gospel. Something I thought that was a weakness, God turned it into one of my main things.
What an amazing thing to show youth that this is actually going to be something that is not something that you have to fight against your whole life, but it propels you forward.
Oh,
like
yeah.
There's things that you look at, like you said, as weaknesses that actually become strengths in a way. I just love that so much, and what a wonderful thing to be able to talk to youth about.
And every time I speak, it's a reminder to me that it's not my own strength, it's not my own ability, that I turned this over to God and He was able to use it.
Yeah, that's a humility that never leaves you, right?
Yeah.
When you've grown up with that. Oh, that's so great, Michael. Okay, so now we'll bring us back to the present, sort of. You actually attended Central in college.
I did.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so how has that been reconnecting? I know that now that you have kids and you want them to be involved in Central, regardless of the position, like you said, you didn't know that was coming your way, obviously. But tell me about reconnecting to the church that you went to in college.
Yeah. So like you said, when I was at CBC, all 4 years I attended college, I came to Central. Never went to any other church. And I was involved in the youth ministry as a volunteer in this room, running sound every week for 4 years. I had experienced running sound in high school and church. I had opportunities to help with that. And when I came, one of the first weeks they said, we need a sound guy. Well, I could do that. And I knew my day as a youth pastor would come. So I just felt strongly, let me serve behind the scenes. And so for all 4 years I was here, I ran sound in the sound booth in this room, not knowing that one day I would be a youth pastor here. And that was my first 2 years is when Pastor Jim was about to go to the national office. I was here on the Wednesday night when he announced to the church. I remember they took the youth ministry, we brought them over. And so I had a group of middle school boys that were in my small group that I was sitting with whenever Pastor Jim announced he was going to the national office. So I was here for that. I was here for the first couple years after that as well. Then I graduated. But I had always had this fondness for Central and just what God was doing here. I would always pay attention to what Central was doing. And when Pastor Jim came back, I celebrated that. I was so excited for the church. And so when my wife and I decided we want to move to Springfield, I told her, I was like, there's this great church, Central Assembly. I didn't want to push it.
Right.
And I said, we could check out churches, but the first church we're going to check out needs to be Central. And she agreed to that. Yeah. And I remember that first Sunday, Pastor Anthony spoke, actually, who's been a longtime friend of mine. But he spoke, and I remember Rebecca turned to me after worship. She said, we're not checking out any other church. Like, we want to be here. So to now especially be the youth pastor in the room where I got to serve is this awesome.
So many
full
layers.
Circle, so many layers of God's faithfulness and just following steps of obedience and just seeing where He brought me. And it's very humbling. I can't walk in this room on a Wednesday or any other day without being reminded of what God did back then.
Yeah. You've really let the cat out of the bag now. I mean, we know now you can run sound. We know you are a musician and you can preach. So you're going to be overcommitted the whole time you're here.
I do have to say, when I ran sound here, the tech director for the church was this guy named Carter McDaniel.
Oh, yes, that guy.
So when I started coming here, one of his first questions is, you interested in running sound?
Right.
And, but I wanted to serve on the worship team too. And, I was available whatever they need.
What an incredible thing. So You're familiar with Pastor Liz. Obviously, you guys grew up in the same area.
Yeah. We didn't know each other back then. But,
right.
Yeah.
But you have a connection
Yeah.
there, Anthony and Carter. And how amazing to start in a church that you already love with people you already know. That's so many steps you just didn't have to take.
Right,
When you
exactly.
started here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. What an incredible gift. All right. So now here we are. We're in this youth auditorium, like you said, that you have so much experience already in. Tell me about your philosophies for youth ministry. Where do you start from, and what really drives you? What philosophies drive you in all of this?
Yeah. One big thing with me, and my wife would tell you, I don't do anything by accident. In fact, I may overthink things. My dad was an engineer for decades and decades before he retired, and so I feel like I fit in well here at the church because I kind of took his mind, the engineering mind, kind of analyzing things from different perspectives. And so for me, everything has a purpose. Whether it's Wednesday night, the purpose of a Wednesday, I want students to come knowing that they're going to get to be with their friends who love Jesus, knowing that they're going to be surrounded by adults who care about them and who love Jesus, knowing that they're going to get biblical teaching and that they're going to have an opportunity to worship together. I mean, that's what Wednesday nights are about. And then Sunday mornings, I love Central and the Christian education that happens here. And so Sunday mornings, that vital 9 o'clock hour of being in a class and having an incredible teacher that's leading a discussion and diving deep into the word or apologetics. Why do we believe what we believe, and having those interactions? Sunday morning's crucial. It's different than Wednesday. Everything has a purpose, but it's crucial there. And then we're going to get small groups started back up, but we're going to do it very intentionally to where, it's not the leader teaching again or lecturing. They get biblical teaching on Wednesday night. They get teaching on Sunday morning. So small groups has to be that opportunity for the students to build those lifelong relationships. They see each other on Wednesday night and Sunday morning and sit next to each other and high five and talk for 5 minutes. But I want small groups to be where those lifelong Christian friendships happen. One of the biggest indicators of if somebody's going to love Jesus the rest of their life is who they surround themselves with. And I want this to be a place where students can come and find lifelong best friends that can encourage them in their walk with Jesus and challenge them. And even when they go off to college and work and life and have families, that they have those relationships that were built in youth group.
I think that's so important to expedite the process of deep connection by deep conversations.
Right.
I think a lot of youth groups, and certainly whenever I grew up here at Central as well, going to youth events was a really big deal, being a part of fine arts and camps and all of that. And that's where a lot of those relationships really deepened. But when you have new students coming in, that it might be 6 months before there's a camp.
Right.
You need to provide opportunities for them to have those deep conversations and develop those deep relationships in that way. So I really, really love that. All right, so Pastor Michael, I have an 8th grader and a 6th grader who absolutely love it here. And tell me about your partnership with Pastor Casey. He's been on staff here for a few years now. And tell me about you guys.
Yeah, I think it's been a God thing. Pastor Casey and I have worked so well together already. We meet together every week and not only talk about ministry, but we laugh together, we share life together, we'll drink coffee together and just hang out for a bit. But he and I have been able to work so well together. And really our heart is that even though his title is middle school pastor and mine's youth pastor, that really both of us are for all the students. He has done an incredible job cultivating relationships that there's so many high schoolers who are plugged in now because of his investment in their life. And I don't want to take that away from them. So both of us just have a heart for both middle school and high school. And so we get to work together. We share the preaching load on Wednesday nights. And, if he can't be in the middle school class on a Sunday morning, I gladly step in and help out. And I love just getting to work with him and being there for all the students. And plus, I do have to say, your 8th grader played drums the other day. Exceptional job.
Oh, well, coming from a musician, I really appreciate that. And a former percussionist. Current percussionist as well, I guess. All right, so tell me, Pastor Michael, as a church, or when you go around and you speak to youth pastors, if you spoke to the churches, what would you tell them that they could do to best support the youth ministry of their church?
Yeah, I would tell them and encourage them to get involved. One of my goals in youth ministry for years has been, how cool would it be if we had a youth group grandma, to where students, when they walk in, maybe they don't have a grandmother figure in their life. They walk in, they get a grandma hug, and maybe grandma makes cookies for them every once in a while, and they just have that relationship. And I think Central is a place that's perfect for intergenerational discipleship, to where they see youth group grandma on Wednesday nights, but then Sunday mornings they give her a hug on their way to their seat. And I would encourage churches, find ways to get involved in the youth ministry. That doesn't mean you have to be in the youth service every single week, but maybe there's an event that you can help volunteer, or maybe you can provide food for something, or maybe it's just an encouraging note to the youth pastor. I can't tell you how many parents and senior adults over the years would hand me a note or give me a hug and just encourage me. And even though, I was the pastor to the teenagers, they just encouraged me and allowed me to pastor them as well. And so I would say, just find ways to get involved. Love the youth pastor. Don't think of the youth ministry as, they're just the church of tomorrow, but invest in them as the church of today. And also, I would ask everyone, don't ask the youth pastor, when are you going to get a real job? Because as somebody who, unless God speaks, I have no desire to be a lead pastor. This is my real job. This is my sweet spot. This is where I feel like God has me, especially for right now. So it's not, one day I'll be a real pastor. No, I'm pastoring these students.
Yeah, you are their pastor. This is so wonderful, and I'm so glad that you're here. The last question that I have for you is, if you could tell them when you graduate out of the youth group, this is what I want for you, this is what I'm doing here, what is that?
I would say when a student graduates from this ministry, I want them to love Jesus. I want them to know how to pray. I always thought it was powerful reading scripture. The disciples followed Jesus around. They saw him heal the blind and heal deaf ears and raise the dead. They had front row seats to that. But they didn't ask Jesus, how do you do that? They didn't say, Jesus, teach us how to raise the dead. They said, Jesus, teach us how to pray. They saw that was where his authority came from. It was the time spent with the Father in those moments of prayer. And I would say, if I could encourage one thing to our students who graduate, I want them to know how to pray. I want them to know they don't need me to get to God. They don't need me to teach them the Bible when they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s. I want them to get plugged into churches, absolutely, and they should. But I want them to know how to connect straight with God. I want them to know that they have access to the very throne room of God, that they can have that personal relationship with him, and that through prayer, miracles happen. Things happen when they come to God in prayer. And so I want our students to know how to pray.
I think that's great. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Absolutely.